Minute. Hi, everyone. Hello, welcome to another Heal Palestine Community Town Hall. My name is Mehdina Basi, and I'm the Development Manager at Heal Palestine. Thank you so much for joining us on a Sunday. We look forward to sharing impact updates from the field. Thank you so much for making this work possible. Whether you have donated, volunteered, fundraised for us, or amplified our work in any other capacity, please know that every act of generosity has helped make this work possible, and we are so grateful. This is also an opportunity for us to hear from you. So please use the chat button or the Q&A section to ask any questions from our leadership, from our team. We'll try our best to answer these questions as we go, but we'll also be taking some questions live in the end. This is a recorded webinar, so you'll receive a recording. And then we'll also be sharing details about how you can get in contact with the team and also how you can get more involved with our work. So with that, thank you again for joining us. And I would like to welcome and hand it over to our Executive Director and our co-founder, Steve Sosby, to share some key updates from the field and also share how we have scaled our work in the last few months and where we're headed next. So Steve, over to you.
I almost started without being on mute, which is standard for every meeting. Thanks everybody for joining. We really appreciate you taking time on a Sunday morning or afternoon, depending on where you're at, to be part of our town hall and for an update on where we are and what we're doing and how you can be part of the healing of Palestine, especially for the children in Gaza who've been going through, as you all know, one of the most horrific periods in modern history, if not the most horrific period. Just briefly, as you all are familiar, I'm sure if you're on this town hall, you're familiar with what's been happening in Gaza over the past nearly 3 years. But just in brief summary, well over 20,000 children have been killed. And that's not counting the children who've suffered from the lack of access to medical care from just injuries, not even injuries, from birth defects, from common diseases, and so on. Tens and tens of thousands of children have died unnecessarily. Hundreds of thousands of children are injured and have suffered, in some cases, permanent injuries that cannot be treated in the destroyed health system. And the entire population of children and the people in Gaza are traumatized from experiencing one of the most brutal and relentless periods of modern history, in which just the relentless killing of civilians, the lack of access to food, to clean water, the destruction of nearly 90% of all standing structures in Gaza, leaving the entire population, nearly the entire population, displaced and without lacking adequate shelter, the destruction of the education system, the entire infrastructure, the entire economy. It goes on and on and on. And that's just scratching the surface of what really is affecting and happening to the people in Gaza. So we're all committed to helping to heal the people there and finding ways that we can bring you into this process as well. I think it's our responsibility as people outside, especially people in my country, the United States, but also in any Western country. We share a very significant moral and ethical responsibility to healing the children there. And that's why we built Heal Palestine. That's why we founded it in January of 2024, to not only do our duty and responsibility to healing the children there, but also giving each of you a responsibility or an opportunity to be part of that healing process and find ways to get involved. Um, and we're going to talk a little bit about what that means and what that healing process in actual programs and projects looks like. One of the ways that touches most of our communities is our Global Healing Program. And in August of last year, a year ago, almost exactly today, actually, a year ago today, I believe it was August 15th, but it was on a Sunday. The United States government stopped issuing visas to injured children coming to the United States. They said they wanted to do some kind of review of the process to make sure that the right people were coming for care. But the reality is that it stopped injured children from coming to the United States. And we'd already evacuated 63 injured children from Gaza to come to the United States for medical care, kids with horrific injuries, amputations, multiple amputations, kids with severe third degree burns on most of their bodies, kids who are coming on death's door. We had even had medical flights that we had to hire intensive care jets to go and pick these kids up who were dying in Egypt. So that stopped. And what we started to do is look for other countries that would accept these children for treatment. And we're very happy to say that it's been a long process and it's far short of what the needs are and far short of what we would like to do. But getting countries to take kids that have never taken kids before is a great accomplishment and something that we've achieved. So in Mexico, we've got our two first kids who arrived a few months ago in Mexico City. You can see in this photo here, Mira, who was just 2.5 years old when a quadcopter shot her in the head as she stood outside her tent. Imagine she lived in a tent because her home had been destroyed. And so she had been shot in the head by a quadcopter, which is not uncommon in Gaza. Amazingly enough to say that this is a common type of injury that's been inflicted on children there, being shot by a drone. She was lost part of her skull, and while she was in the hospital being nursed back to health by her mother, the hospital was hit by a bomb, and her mother lost her leg while she was taking care of her injured daughter. So both of them with her two other daughters, were evacuated to Mexico City. Mira has had surgery. Now she's undergoing rehabilitation. Her mom had surgery and is getting a leg built and will learn to walk again, is in the process of learning to walk again. So that's part of our global healing program. All of our stories of kids that have come to out of Gaza for treatment through our organization have these kind of success stories. On their stories are also extremely tragic because some of these injuries are permanent and will be with them the rest of their life. Like Muath here, who's 14 and he lost his leg above the knee in a bombing as well in Gaza and is in Mexico City learning to walk again. If you follow us on social media, you'll see him learning to walk. You'll see Mira undergoing rehabilitation care, and we're very proud that we were able to get them to Mexico. And we thank the people there in Mexico who've been very open, welcoming, and generous in taking care of our kids as a community, and building a heal community there in Mexico City to take more kids in the future as well. We also have kids. We just came back from getting Nasser here on the left started in his care in Spain. Nasser, I can't say enough about how beautiful and sweet this 7-year-old boy is. He lost his leg right under the hip on the right and his left foot in a bombing that also killed his 8-month-old sister. And he's there with his mother and his two siblings in Barcelona, starting his treatment. And he's already in the process of getting rehabilitation and getting a prosthetic leg built. And we're also bringing Osama, who's 15, and he's in Egypt waiting to get his visa to go to Barcelona as well. He lost his leg in a bombing above the knee. And this week, I think tomorrow, we have two girls going to Portugal. And by the way, these are the first kids that have gone to these countries through NGOs. I know Spain government has evacuated some kids. These two girls on the right are the first kids at all who've gone to Portugal. So Dima and Malak are both arriving, I believe, tomorrow in Lisbon or in Porto, and will start their treatment for prosthetic limbs as permanent amputees. And we're very proud to be able to support them. There's great organizations in Portugal that we'll be partnering with, Parents for Peace and GARP, who are helping to take care of them on the ground there, as in Spain with Qudwa. We love to partner with other small organizations or local organizations in these countries that are doing good work and make sure our kids get the best care possible. So our global healing program is continuing. It's not as it was before because the U.S. government's actions have prevented us from bringing them to the U.S., but we are finding other countries that are accepting them, and we hope to grow this and rebuild this program so other countries can get involved and do their responsibility in helping these kids. You can sell weapons. You can see the results of these weapons, but we also have a moral responsibility to make sure that we heal the victims of this horrific situation in Gaza as well. Um, Moving on here to some of the other work we're doing. We just did in the past month, we started a new football academy for children with amputations. It's the first and only one in Gaza. And we are building teams there and teaching children who have lost their limbs. As you probably all know, Gaza has the largest number of amputee children in modern recorded history per capita. There's thousands and thousands of children in Gaza. No one knows the exact number yet. There are organizations, including ourselves, which are documenting these kids. But we do know that there are several thousand children who've suffered traumatic amputations from bombings, from sniper fire, from drone attacks, from airstrikes, that are in need of prosthetic care that cannot get that treatment inside of Gaza because prosthetic materials are not permitted to enter Gaza at this time. So these are kids that are basically either doing with makeshift prosthetic limbs or just on crutches. We built a football academy to teach them how to play soccer. There's been an adult program there as well. And our amputee program in Gaza, which we started at the beginning of the year, is run by amputees themselves. kids that we've treated over the years. As some of you know, I started and founded PCRF, ran that organization, built it for 30 years. And some of the kids that I treated in that organization are now working for us in Heal Palestine. Great people, great, grew into being young adults, and they are leading our amputee program there. So we're very proud of that football academy. It's giving these kids a chance to for a better life and giving them something to feel hopeful for and to make them feel as kids as they should have their childhoods back. And we're going to keep finding these kind of programs and projects to give these children an opportunity to live. Like our next program, which is our this summer in Gaza, we've been doing a swimming program for amputee children and for orphans. We've started an orphan and amputee program at the beginning of the year to bring kind of a the holistic model that we have for our global healing program, which is that we don't just treat these kids medically. We also provide education, we provide mental health care, we provide social support. We want to make sure that we rebuild their lives, not just get them the medical care they need, but also identify that the wounds that they've suffered are not just these external physical wounds, they're wounds to their spirits, to their minds, to their souls. And we want to help not only heal their bodies, but heal their spirits, give them back some part of their childhood, as I mentioned earlier. So having these opportunities to build social programs and activities for these kids in Gaza is part of our kind of our core value as an organization. So we've got this summer camp where kids and we are very happy to work with the Tantish swimming program in Gaza. If you're not familiar with them, please Google them and see the amazing work that they're doing throughout the Gaza Strip. And we have a pool that we're working to ensure that these kids have access to and give them again a chance for a better life and a better future. So these are the very interesting programs. We have a very important aid program. Just in the past several months, we've provided food and tents and clothing and medication and hygiene kits and all kinds of aid to hundreds of thousands of children and people inside Gaza, nearly a million. Over a million meals have been served. And we're really one of the main organizations, if not the main organization, getting tents into Gaza. As you know, as I mentioned earlier, 90% of the homes there have been destroyed, and are living in these incredibly difficult conditions with rats, with extreme weather, with inadequate shelter, and for years. Imagine children living for years in a tent, and how hard that is for them just to survive and to live under these extreme conditions. So we are committed to doing all we can to support the people there through our aid program. And HEAL is founded on the idea of health, education, aid, and leadership. And the core values of our organization is to help everybody in any way we possibly can. So providing food, providing shelter, providing any kind of humanitarian aid there through our programs is the most effective way that we can show the people there that we care about them and they're not forgotten. We have so much work that's going on. And Zina's going to talk a little bit more about that in the health pillar as well. But in general, and I just want to say, as I conclude my portion of the talk here, that we appreciate all of your support. This is an organization that is run by a committed team of very brave and active people on the ground in the West Bank, in Gaza, in Egypt, who dedicate themselves every single day throughout extreme conditions, which their families are suffering from as well. They are committed to this mission, and we, as a community outside, and you in particular, as volunteers and supporters of our organization, make it possible for this work to be successful and to be accomplished. But there's so much more to do, and we're continuing to build this organization. We're only 2.5 years old. We have a very, very ambitious vision. And I want to continue to build these programs and find ways to bring some semblance of humanity back to the people in Gaza. And we can only do that with your support. So thank you again for joining this afternoon. And we'll have a period for questions and answers at the end here. And this is going to give you a chance to kind of ask any questions you might have, but also we'd love to hear from you. And these town halls are set up for you all to have a chance to speak and be part of our organization. So we're excited about hearing from you, and thank you all for supporting our work.
Thank you so much, Steve, for that important update. I just want to mention that if anyone is having trouble seeing these videos, these are available on our website. We just wanted you all to see the incredible work our team is doing on the ground. It just brings us a lot of hope to see these kids playing and just being kids again. And so, if you go on our Instagram, you'll be able to see a lot of these stories, a lot of these videos, and also on our website. And we'll also make sure that we link them directly into the follow-up email that we'll send after this event. So thank you, Steve. I do want to hand it over now to Dr. Zina Salman, who's also our co-founder, to share some other key updates from our health pillar on the ground. Over to you, Zina. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mahdi, and thank you, Steve, for that introduction to HEAL in general. I'm Dr. Zina Salman. I'm a pediatric cancer specialist and one of the co-founders of HEAL Palestine. And I'm here to talk to you today about some of the health projects and programs that HEAL Palestine runs inside and outside of Gaza. As you all know, and we've all witnessed and live streamed for almost 3 years now, the health sector in Gaza has been completely decimated inside and out. Not only with the bombing of infrastructure, the murder of healthcare workers, the lack of allowance of medication and equipment and consumables to enter Gaza, and as well as the really terrible medical evacuation system, which is incredibly restrictive and allows for only a few people to leave each day when we all know that there are, at this point, estimates of around 18,000 people who are waiting to leave. Because of these massive challenges that feel almost insurmountable that are taking place inside of Gaza, our goal and objective as Heal Palestine is really to offset this, to try to provide healthcare whenever possible inside of Gaza, as well as outside of Gaza whenever we can, to bring children out as well. With that, we have not only the Global Healing Program, which I think is so visible to all of you, with the amazing children who are so resilient and really just heroes to all of us, who we've brought to the US, and as Steve mentioned, now exploring new countries like Mexico, Portugal, Spain, and hopefully going even beyond that until the US reopens its doors to children with amputations and who are in need of surgeries and otherwise to come back to the US. So in addition to those 65 going on 67 to in 24 hours from now, children who we've brought to other countries to help them to walk again and to heal. We also have many interventions, including medical care that we provide inside of Gaza. And that is in the form of two different systems. One is our field hospital. Maybe many of you have seen on our social media the Heal Palestine Field Hospital. It's found in Mawasi Khan Yunis. I bring that up because a lot of people ask us on a daily basis where they can find this level of care. Our hospital has been running since very, very early on, serving almost 300,000 people to date. We do surgeries regularly in the hospital. Over 3,000 surgeries have been performed. We've had 66,000 emergency visits. We've delivered babies there. Over 600 babies have been safely delivered at the Khan Yunis Field Hospital. And we have nearly 300 staff on the ground who are staffing this hospital. This is a place where people can find access to care, albeit limited, but care that's otherwise unavailable throughout the Gaza Strip. Because of the success of the field hospital, we've recognized that there's a need for more care in other parts of the Gaza Strip. It is still so hard for people to be able to travel north or south to access care throughout Gaza. And therefore, we've opened not one, but two medical points in Gaza. And these are closer to where families can shelter. In South Gaza, we've had over 23,000 visits, and we have a huge medical point there with nearly 40 staff. In North Gaza, we have a smaller medical point, still accessible to many, many patients. So over 3,500 patients have been served in our North Gaza medical point. And these are medical points, so they're more like clinics, not quite like hospitals, but a lot of primary care that patients otherwise can't access for both acute and chronic diseases can take place in those medical points. So just trying to find more and more access across the Gaza Strip for people to be able to access care that they can't get otherwise. We recognize that the destruction of the healthcare system means that people need medical care, but it also means that we need to start rebuilding the medical system across Palestine starting now. We know that healthcare workers have been killed and injured and have been forced to leave whenever possible Gaza. And so it's our duty to bring people in from the outside to help in Gaza and in the West Bank, where we know that there are massive struggles as well that have not been quite as covered in the media. Therefore, we do medical missions that not only treat patients, but also train doctors and nurses. We have trained over 200 medical staff to date across 15 medical missions. We've treated over 60 patients with surgeries that they otherwise would not have access to, brought care to 150 different cases. And we have physicians and nurses who bring supplies with them. So we've donated over $50,000 in supplies specifically for spinal surgery. And you can see one of our medical missions in this photo here, where we both treat as well as train hand in hand. And then finally, I think we would be remiss to not mention often overlooked part of healthcare, and that is mental health. We all know that we can no longer talk about PTSD when we talk about the mental health needs of people in Gaza because they're not post-trauma. They're living in trauma. They've been living in trauma for 3 years, but they've also been living in trauma. Most of our children, in particular, their entire lives have been exposed to bombardment after bombardment. And so we really are on a mission to provide mental health support that allows children to feel like children and to help them to feel safe and to overcome some of the trauma that they've experienced. We've supported over 2,000 children and their parents through 1,300 therapy sessions. We have 3 centers as well as phone outreach. We have nearly 20 staff and volunteers who provide this support. This support is in the form of one-on-one therapy, family therapy, art therapy, and so much more. And that's something that we provide not only in Gaza, but also for our evacuated patients and families in Egypt, as well as in the US, Mexico, Spain, and Portugal. So we recognize that physical healing has to go hand in hand with mental health healing. And that's part of our very holistic approach to treating children and their families who are in and out of Gaza. With that, I will turn it back over to Mahdeen. Thank you all so much for attending today.
Thank you so much, Zina. Just looking at the time, I want to make sure everyone gets a chance to share their updates. So I will hand it over to Dr. Summer, who is our education manager, and she'll be sharing some exciting updates from our education pillar. Over to you, Summer.
Thank you, Mahdeen. Hi, everyone. I'm Samar Al-Majayda, and I am honored to be with you today. Before sharing any updates about our education pillar, I want to briefly explain the scale of the Gaza education crisis. UN experts have described the systematic destruction of Gaza education system as scholasticide. More than 97% of Gaza schools have been partially damaged or completely destroyed, leaving over 637,000 children without regular access to education. UNICEF has estimated that their learning may have been set back by 5 years. Children have lost more than lessons. They have lost safe learning spaces, daily routines, relationships with friends and teachers, and critical years of academic and social development. In Q2, HEAL's education reached more than 3,000 Palestinian children and young people across Gaza and Egypt. I'll begin with Gaza. The updates, we have our most significant milestone. We're very excited to announce our opening to the HEAL Palestine School in Al Mawasi, Khan Yunis, end of June. The school serves around 1,500 students. 30% are children with disabilities and orphans. Students also receive mental health support, health care, nutrition, and aid support. We are actively working now to enhance the quality of education through ongoing teacher training, continuous improvement of the school physical environment, and ensuring that students' essential needs are fully met before the beginning of the academic school year in the first week of September. We also continue to support 250 children with mental and physical disabilities through Shams Center in Gaza City. Students receive specialized education based on their individual needs and are also connected with our HEAL's health and aid services. In Q2, we have appointed a dedicated education coordinator to strengthen the support for 220 students across the orphan and amputee programs in Gaza. We have a technology and training program that through it we support 50 young professionals receive training in full stack web development and quality assurance training that will allow them to connect with employment and freelancing opportunities, helping them building skills and achieve financial independence. In the second quarter, also, we have launched the second cycle of diploma release program, where we support about 300 university graduate students by paying their outstanding fees so they can receive their diplomas and find employments and continue their studies. I'll transition now to Egypt, where we support our global healing students, about 60 global healing students. Once they're done with the treatment in the US, they go and move to Egypt, and we continue supporting them in all pillars through enrollment in the in-person schools, one-on-one tutoring, summer school, now ongoing educational clubs, and foundational skills. Through our tuition relief program during quarter two, we supported 120 Gazan students who were at risk of dropping out because of financial hardship. We just launched our back to school support event yesterday. We distributed 600 learning kits, helping students begin academic year with the materials they need. Also in Egypt, we have started in quarter one, and now we're expanding in quarter two to support 10 students pursuing degrees in critical fields in medicine and engineering. We have two exciting announcements in Egypt. We are preparing now to open our first school in Egypt, providing a stable and supportive learning environments for more than 325 displaced Gazan students first week in September. We also are preparing for the launch of the third cycle of our high school support program, sponsoring 100 Gazan students as they prepare for their Tawjihi exams for the year of 26-27 academic year. I'd like to leave all of us with one thought. Behind every number is a story of a child returning to classroom, a student rebuilding confidence, a graduate receiving a diploma and finding a job, a family beginning to see hope again. None of this would be possible without the dedication of our team on the ground, our teachers, partners, donors, and volunteers. At HEAL, we believe education is not optional. It's essential to healing, recovery, and rebuilding. Thank you again for being with us today and for your continued support. I'll hand it over to Mahdeen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for this update. It's quite incredible to see the work that our team has been able to accomplish in just few months, and obviously they're not stopping. Their commitment to the Palestinian children and families is just incredible, and all of this work has been made possible because of supporters like you. So thank you again for joining us and for your interest and involvement in our mission and work. I we are ready for some Q&A. For those of you who joined us a little late, please post your questions in the Q&A section. And I would really request our panelist, Steve, Zena, Summer, if you can turn on your video and we can take some questions live. Okay, so we have quite a few questions. We are going to try our best to cover all of them. I'm going to try to merge some of these questions since they're related. So my first question is around the Global Healing Program. And we do get this question a lot, especially after, we were unable to evacuate any new kids to United States. And we have been expanding that to new countries and new regions. So what can people in US do to support our Global Healing Program? Are there still restrictions in place to evacuate patients to United States? And what is that process like in terms of selecting these kids? And if you can explain the process of evacuations for these Global Healing kids. I don't know, Zena, Steve.
It's Zena, Dr.
Okay.
Salman.
Go ahead.
Sure, I'm happy to take this question, although I'm not sure the answer is as straightforward as we would all hope. I'll first talk a little bit about the selection process because I think that's probably the question that comes up pretty frequently. It's not an easy process. As I mentioned earlier on, there are 18,000 Palestinians in Gaza who are trying to leave, not just children, of course, children and adults with a variety of chronic diseases, injuries, and otherwise. Our program really focuses on children who can have sort of definitive treatment. What that means is that they have something where we know that we can provide that treatment, whether it's a surgery, 1 or 2 times surgery for either an injury or a congenital, disease or deformity, something that perhaps they were born with, but where we know that there's a surgical correction. Of course, a lot of, but not all of our children are children with amputations. We know that children in Gaza right now with amputations make up the largest amputee population in modern history. And so it's not surprising, I think, to know that the majority of our children, but again, not all of them, do have amputations or injuries to 1, 2, 3, or even 4 of their limbs. Children come to our attention, whether it's through one of our programs on the ground. We do have an amputee program on the ground, as well as, our mental health program, our hospital, and our medical points. They are often referred through those, but sometimes referred through other family members or staff or through people like yourselves. I saw already in the Q&A multiple times people saying that they're aware of somebody. Those come to our attention, and whenever possible, once we're aware of them, they go through our system. We have health coordinators on the ground in Gaza. We'll see the families, we'll assess them, make sure that they have the appropriate paperwork and documentation that's required in Gaza through the Ministry of Health and the World Health Organization. Now, it's really important to note that we do not facilitate evacuations. There's one central coordinating body, and that's through the Ministry of Health and the World Health Organization. That's very important to know. It's not any one NGO, it's not ourselves. There's only one pathway for patients to actually go through. So they do have to not only have the correct medical documentation, but they have to have all of the approvals that are necessary from the MOH, the Ministry of Health, and from the World Health Organization. And at that point, we need to also then identify care for them. So previously, as you mentioned, that was in the United States. Now we're really having to broaden our horizons and find new countries that maybe have, a more receptive approach to Palestinians, particularly from Gaza. And at the moment, that appears to be Mexico, Spain, Portugal, and we hope many others in the near future. So it's also sort of a matchmaking process where we then identify care, find a facility and a country that's willing to accept them for treatment, a country that's willing to provide a visa, and then have that evacuation process that's not ours, that's MOH and WHO's, to then allow those children out to Egypt where we care for them until those visas are processed and they reach their temporary destination for treatment. Once they complete treatment, they then go back to Egypt, where we continue to support them through housing, living stipend, education, mental health support, and so much more until they are able to reunite with their families in Gaza again, which some of our families have chosen to do, and others have remained in Egypt for the time being. So that's sort of the process, and I'm happy to take any other questions on this topic. I know it's a big one that comes up frequently.
And if I can just throw in here that we do still have, I think, around 15 kids in the United States being treated from Gaza with families. So if you live in some of the areas where they're being treated, like Chicago, Seattle, Dallas, Atlanta, New York, New Jersey area, Cleveland, please reach out to us, Boston. let us contact us at
Um,
info@healpalestine.org, and there's volunteer opportunities with those families as well.
Houston, San Francisco. I can't remember if you said those. So
We
if you
also got a question for
Yes.
Seattle, so we have a
We have a
lot of
beautiful baby
interest.
girl in Seattle with her family there. So happy to make any connections and have you join. If you guys aren't aware, we have 27 healing communities across the United States. So for anyone who's joining this call today and isn't part of a local heal community, 9 times out of 10, there is one near you, and you're welcome to reach out to us. I think Mahdeen's posted her email address as well as info@healpalestine.org. You can reach out and we can point you to the nearest healing community where you can receive regular updates, whether it's kids in the community, events, or other ways that you can be a part of Heal Palestine.
Thank you. Thank you, Zina. Thank you, Steve. So we got a couple of questions around how aid is also getting into Gaza and how we are able to, especially with the field hospital, how our field hospital has continued to function and serve the displaced families in Gaza. So if, Steve, you can talk a little about
Yeah.
how we are getting aid in and
Yeah,
also medical
that's
supplies. Yeah, sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
that's always one of the main questions, and it's a because aid has been blocked, quite frequently as a tool to kind of punish or subjugate the Palestinians. We work with a lot of high-level partners in the United Nations, UNDP, WHO, who we work through to deliver aid and to get aid into Gaza, and we've been very successful in developing these kind of relationships, which are based on trust and transparency. We have a team on the ground in Gaza who are very active in being able to distribute aid to people, to beneficiaries who need it most. And what we found is a lot of organizations and even countries are able to get aid into Gaza, but don't have a team on the ground to ensure distribution is done in a professional and fair manner. And we have that team. We have an incredible aid team that runs our food kitchen, that does humanitarian distributions, and are able to take aid from other organizations as well and make sure it reaches those in need, which we've been getting a lot of aid like that as well. So it's through partnerships, it's through support and coordination of aid going into Gaza that has enabled us to distribute or get over 20,000 tents in over the past couple of years, and we have another 10,000 coming to provide over 1 million meals and provide tens of thousands of articles of clothing, of medication. Our food field hospital is supported, through aid coming in through WHO and UNDP and those kind of high level, non-governmental, but well-established institutions that are able to get aid in as well.
Thank you, Steve. I do have a question for Dr. Summer on the education side, actually, a couple of questions. For students that need financial support to pay fees to earn diplomas, is there a way students can reach out to our team?
Mahdeen, can you repeat the question again,
So,
please?
so this question is for students in Gaza who need financial support to pay fees to earn their diplomas.
Mhm.
Is there a way they can reach out to our team and how can we help them?
This is a great question. We get it a lot. I mean, there was a window for 3 weeks, a window to apply, as we know that there's a huge gap in this area, and we receive hundreds of applications through our application system. And it's for this cycle, it's closed, but we redo this cycle every 6 months. So I'd encourage them to follow up with our social media and website when we announce for them.
That sounds good. Thank you. And then just to follow up on this one too, the scholarships for university or the tuition fee support that we are providing them, are they only for online or continuing education inside Gaza? Can we help with any exit visas if university students have been accepted to universities outside of Gaza?
So we also get this a lot. We can't help with educational evacuation from Gaza, and the scholarship pilot program we started in Egypt right now. We are planning in 2027 to establish a new sponsorship program or scholarship program in Gaza. But currently, it's in only in Egypt.
Thank you so much for sharing. I have another question, and this is the question we also get a lot, especially since we launched our orphan program and also the amputee program for children in Gaza. Is there a process for adoption of these kids? And if not, how can people support these children in Gaza? Steve, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I mean, this is a question I get asked every day, and I think we all see that there's tens of thousands of kids who are now newly orphaned in Gaza. I think the number's around 40,000. It's probably higher than that. And many of them are kids, and we've treated a lot of these kids who've lost both parents. And in many cases, there's children that have lost their entire families and they're the sole survivors. And I'm sure you're all familiar, there's a new term about these kids that are basically, their families are wiped out and they're the only remaining members. But in the adoption from Gaza is impossible, as much as it's needed and as much as there's such a loving community abroad of people, particularly Palestinians in the diaspora, but people in general that can give them the love and homes and support that these kids need to grow up and to just be able to have some semblance of a normal life if that's possible, considering what's happened to them. But unfortunately, because of well, there's many reasons. From a legal point of view, you would need a government to facilitate a adoption process. And in Gaza, there isn't any internal governmental mechanism that would enable that. Number one. Number two, there is a religious and cultural issue here as well, that adoption is something that would be very challenging outside of the culture and religious components of the Palestinian community. So that's something that would require a lot of overview and oversight. Also, the Palestinians in general, and this is true of the Arab culture, extended families take care of their of kids and each other. So a lot of children who've been orphaned are cared for by grandparents, who are cared for by aunts and uncles, cared for by extended family members, which is a beautiful thing, and not something that is necessarily true in the West. So that's something people from the West don't often consider, that when kids are orphaned in Gaza, as terrible and horrific and graphic as that is, and it's something that's been going, it's just unbelievable the number of orphans that exist in Gaza now. And this is why we started our orphan sponsorship program, is that these kids are often taken care of by extended family members. And then finally, there's a political issue, and this is something we can't ignore, which is that Palestinians feel strongly that removing people from Palestine is part of the ethnic cleansing program that's been going on in Palestine for generations. This is just the reality of what the Palestinian political narrative has been for the past 100+ years. So removing people from Palestine, even children who are orphaned, and this is, I'm explaining to you the realities. This is not necessarily my opinion, but I understand it certainly that there is a strong resistance to people leaving Palestine and being removed from Palestine for adoption, even. Those are all factors that come into play here. So when you consider the idea of adoption, as important as it would be for these children, and as many as there's thousands of people all over the world would be more than happy to open their homes and welcome orphan children in Gaza into their families and raise them as their own. There is no mechanism in place for a legal adoption process in Gaza, for Gaza children. So with that being said, unfortunately, there is not a adoption process in place for these orphan children. However, that doesn't mean that there aren't ways that we can take responsibility for these kids and try to give them the support. We have an orphan program that gives them that is focusing on their education, focusing on their health needs, focusing on their mental health and social psychological needs, providing them humanitarian aid, whether it's shelter, whether it's clothing, medication, food. We have a program being built to make sure these kids do get the basic necessities that they need to survive and to live. And I think as we grow as an organization, we'll continue to find ways that we can even improve that program for these orphan children and try to give them even more of the support they need to overcome this horrific and unimaginable loss of having their parents killed or a parent killed. So, if you do care about orphans and you feel adoption is something that you really want to do, but it's not possible, that doesn't mean there aren't other ways that you can support these children that is effective and impactful and has a life-changing impact. And we have that program in place. So feel free to support that and get involved with Heal Palestine to think of ways that we can even improve our work for these children.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. I have a question on the medical missions. Zina, if you can please answer this. Currently, are there any medical missions able to get into Gaza and perform vital medical surgeries and provide medical care?
That's a great
And
question. Medical missions into Gaza have been very challenging and very sparse, far, far, far below obviously what's needed to support a healthcare system that's been so destroyed. And so we are right now in the process of planning some medical missions to enter Gaza in the very near future. That being said, I think it's uh, probably widely known that so many physicians and other healthcare workers have gone as far as flying all the way to the border and then on the day or the day prior to entry being denied entry into Gaza, even if they had all the permissions available previously. So we will continue to do everything that we can to support this process, to recruit doctors, nurses, and other healthcare workers. Every type of healthcare worker is so vitally needed right now. There are often lists of specific specialties that are most critically needed that is put out by the World Health Organization and by the committee that helps to organize these. And so we typically try to recruit within those, but we know that everything is needed at this point. And we will continue on our end, just like with everything else, to do everything that we can, but we're working against very, very challenging circumstances, unfortunately. We do
And
the majority of our missions to the West Bank as well as to East Jerusalem, which I think is really, really important to mention as well. I'm sure that everyone who cares about Palestine, which is everyone on this call, knows that what's happening in the West Bank between settler violence, continued encroachment on Palestinian cities and regions, and then what's happening with East Jerusalem, which has been going on also for such a long time, encroachment in East Jerusalem, and the very few remaining Palestinian hospitals in that area. They all require so much support as well. And so when the restrictions are so huge on Gaza, we continue to kind of divert. And so any interested doctors and nurses, we will continue to send to any part of Palestine because the need is great everywhere. Even in the West Bank, physicians and nurses have certain types of training, primary care particularly, and everything else they have to leave for. And so there's so many things that are needed still in Palestine across the board. So if we can get people into Gaza, we will continue to work towards that. And in the meantime, we'll move people wherever the need may be across the country.
thank you so
Yeah, and
much, Zina.
I just want to add something to that if you don't mind, because I'm
Mhm.
right. Medical missions, we do have several teams approved now to enter Gaza and are in the process of starting within the next 2 weeks. Our first team will be entering the first team since last year to get into Gaza in pediatric intensive care support. And we have a lot of missions being planned and supported into Gaza. But in the West Bank, as Zina mentioned, our focus is really on developing and supporting the public health sector. And what we did earlier this year is we did an assessment of all the public hospitals in Gaza where patients go for free care. These are not private hospitals that are profit oriented. This is where the majority of Palestinians go to get the care that they need, that they don't have to pay for. And we did an assessment. Our team on the ground there went into every hospital, every department. We evaluated what their needs are, whether their material needs, equipment needs, training. And because the people are isolated, the people in Jenin have a hard time going to Nablus, where there's a level of care that's higher than what's available in Jenin, for example. And the same in the south. In Hebron, people are isolated because of the settler violence, because of the restrictions that the Israeli army has imposed on movement in those areas. You have to develop services in those hospitals that are otherwise not justified because the population doesn't justify to have these kind of high level services. So what we're doing now is we're identifying those needs in those hospitals, even smaller hospitals like Salfit or Tukaram or Dura, which are considered small hospitals, but now are providing a high level of care because people can't travel. We're bringing teams in and we're training doctors and nurses. We're providing medical equipment. We just put a plan together, a procurement plan that's nearly $3 million that's just providing medical equipment and support to West Bank hospitals because this whole challenging situation of movement of ethnic cleansing, which Zena mentioned, is now being further entrenched in the West Bank, and it's affecting the healthcare status of people as well. So we have a strategic plan. We're really the only organization that's ever done this to identify what the needs are strategically in each hospital and every specialization, including Maqasid Hospital in East Jerusalem, the main referral hospital in Palestine, and providing them the training, support, and aid to increase and improve the quality of care for the patients there.
Thank you so much. I have a very interesting question, and I think if you all can take turns to answer this, and also mention how, in your respective areas of work, how we are scaling our work on the ground. As you answer this question, I think would be really helpful for our audience. But the question is, after everything you have accomplished so far, what do you see as the biggest challenge for HEAL over the next year, and how can we best help you overcome it other than financially? I don't know who wants to take that first. I would say that as a fundraiser, obviously we do need to continue raising support for the work on the ground. And so obviously appreciate financial support, but there are so many different ways in which you can help amplify not only our work, but the voices of those who we serve, whether it's, sharing our work on Instagram, on social media, hosting an event for us, launching a fundraiser, every act of generosity really helps our work. But I would love for the panelists to also answer this question as they think about our next steps and goals. Zena.
Zena raised her hand. Go
Okay.
for it.
I can take this. I think that, and this is a bit of a generalization, so hear me out. But I do think that, certain things that have happened that have changed people's attention around Palestine. For example, the false use 6 months ago of the word ceasefire and how that's shifted, as well as like the general global political atmosphere, right, with Iran and Lebanon and so many other places that have shifted the focus away from Palestine. So I think that's something that's really really important to continue to ask for, is to continue to keep Palestine in people's minds, at the forefront of our conversations. People always talk about, keep talking about Palestine, keep bringing this up, keep letting people know that actually the violence continues, the destruction continues, the injuries continue, the need continues. It's greater than ever at this point. The reality is that despite the use of the word ceasefire, we're now approaching the 3-year anniversary. Um, and this is just of what's happened since October 7th, right? We all know that there was a blockade for a long time prior to that. And so there's always been a huge need in Palestine, and particularly in Gaza, but now even more in the West Bank and Jerusalem, as I mentioned previously. And so I think it's important to maintain focus, maintain efforts of advocacy, fundraising, awareness. We have so many volunteers who hold, somebody just mentioned that they're having an event for us on September 6th, which I don't think we even knew about, Mahdeen. I don't know if you did, but I think that just goes to show you that we are so grassroots and we are so dependent on the people in this Zoom room, the people who help us across the country and now around the world, to spread awareness about our work and to continue to support it and to continue to recognize and speak about the continued atrocities, the continued need, the continued destruction. Things are going to keep getting worse. And so keeping this at the forefront of our minds, our hearts, our energy, and our wallets is really, really important across the board.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zina. I would like to build on what Dr. Zina said. As people are attention moving from Palestine, and we want to bring the attention back, and we want to keep our eyes on Palestine and Gaza in particular, because the aftermath of the ceasefire is great. Especially in the education sector, maybe during the intense genocide or the crisis that's been happening, we couldn't activate our education pillar as much as we want to because of the context of the crisis happening. But now, after the ceasefire, even though it's a flimsy one, but our strategic planning and we're actively moving from serving 400 students in January 25 to now more than 3,000 students. And we doubled our team, and we're looking to even add more team members on the ground to serve the objectives that we are trying to achieve in the education pillar. So by the end of this year, we will, as we plan for 27 academic year, we will even add more people on the ground and to help us cater to the increasing need and the huge gap and huge application that we receive and requests receive every day. So we want your support and ongoing continued support to stay intact for the rest of this year and the upcoming year. Thank you so much.
And I will just add here, I think it's a great question. I don't think I've ever been asked that question before in any of the town halls that I've been on before, but I love that question. And it's one that would take a lot more time than the few minutes that we have left here to answer, but I'll try to be very brief. I think and Zina and Dr. Summer both mentioned, Dr. Zina, both mentioned great points, which I don't need to reiterate. But I will say, our biggest challenge when we think about the future is the unknowns, which is, we've seen this the Board of Peace come in and take $10 billion to rebuild Gaza. Not a single rebuilding effort has been made on the ground there from external sources, bringing cement in or building supplies or giving people any respite from the suffering that they've had to endure for nearly 3 years now and even longer, as Dr. Salman mentioned. So there you have this kind of external force in place that is absorbing all of this international aid that's not being used to help people. That makes things very complicated because there should be a huge international effort to put a resolution in place and support the people that they need. And if it's being left to NGOs and nonprofits like Heal Palestine, it's going to be very hard to meet the scale of suffering there. So it leads us to a challenge for us. How do we prioritize where we want to put our efforts and our resources, which are extremely limited in comparison to the scale that's needed there? We want to provide education. Well, every child in Gaza needs educated. There's 1 million children in Gaza. How do you provide education for all of them? We want to provide health care for every child in need. Well, there's about over 10,000 children right now who need to go outside of Gaza for treatment. And if governments aren't accepting them, if it takes so hard to get European governments, the Germans haven't accepted a single child for treatment. Germany, a country, one of the richest, biggest countries in the world, hasn't accepted a single injured child from Gaza to come for treatment. Hasn't accepted hardly any. The UK has accepted hardly any. It's shameful. And now our country's shot down treating these kids. Where are these kids going to go for treatment? How do organizations, it's left on the shoulders of NGOs like Heal Palestine to take responsibility for the thousands and thousands of injured children. How's that even possible when these countries are closing their borders and closing their hospitals to treat them? So we talk about education, we talk about healthcare, we talk about the level of trauma that every single child in Gaza, every single person in Gaza has experienced due to the destruction, the violence, the hunger, the displacement that they've had to endure over nearly 3 years now. The scale of suffering, the scale of just the punishment and the cruelty that's been going on and continues to go on, it's very hard for us to plan because we want to rebuild. We want to be part of the rebuilding. We want to rebuild the lives of these kids. That's really our main goal and why we started Heal Palestine. Because these children, like Nasser in Spain, who I just held in my arms last week, um, and he's so skinny from the lack of proper nutrition, and he's lost both his legs, and he's just 7 years old. We want to rebuild his life. And there's thousands of kids just like him. We want to give them a future. We want to give them hope. We want to give them back their childhood. We want to give them a future. We don't want them to live a life where they're dependent on organizations or governments to feed them and clothe them until they're, as they become adults and as they live the rest of their lives. We want them to have some purpose in their life. And we can't do that as long as there is this continued closure of Gaza, the continued bombing and killing of innocent people there, the continued denial of aid and humanitarian support for the people there. So our challenge is how do we prioritize our support? Where do we have the biggest impact? How can we help as much people as possible? And how can we do it in the most efficient and effective way? And how can we include you as our supporters, as our volunteers, as people who care so deeply about the Palestinian people, who've been so emotionally moved, disturbed, and traumatized? All of us are traumatized by what we've seen in Gaza. How do we give you a chance to be part of the healing process? This is what we think about every day. This is what we talk about every day. And this is the challenge that we face, not knowing what the future holds for the Palestinian people and for the children in Gaza in particular. We're going to keep working. We're not going to give up ever, of course. We're going to find ways to keep doing football academies and swimming lessons and field hospitals and food kitchens and opening schools and medical teams going in and treating patients and getting more kids out for care and more than that. And the only way we can be successful in doing that is if you support us and be part of it. Doesn't mean just money. It means time. It means love. It means compassion. We were in Barcelona when Nasser arrived last week, and we told the community there, we don't want your money. We want your time. We want you to go and visit him and his mom and his siblings, to take them out and to care for them and take them to their appointments and just let them know that they're loved. And that's what the people of Gaza they need right now. They need solidarity. They need love. They need to know that the world cares about them. And they need to feel that through real action, not through social media likes, but through real action, which helps to change their lives. That gives them a tent, that gives them food, gives them clothing, gives them a school to go to, gives them medicine that they otherwise wouldn't have access to. That's all the work we're doing, and that's where we need you guys to be a part of. And we're going to keep going no matter what the governments do, no matter what the international community does or doesn't do. We as individuals and collectively as Heal Palestine are going to keep fulfilling our moral, ethical, and political responsibility to help the people there and show them that we stand with them. I think I went over time.
No, thank you so much, Steve, for that. I think that was also a perfect way to end this town hall, and also give us all something to think about on how we all can take action in supporting the work that Heal Palestine does. So thank you so much for sharing that. We are at time. Thank you everyone for joining us today, and for all your thoughtful questions. As a reminder, we will be sending out the recording for this town hall, and we'll also share ways in which you can get more involved. There were a lot of questions about how we can volunteer, what opportunities are there to volunteer, what are some of the other ways to stay engaged with HEAL's team. So we will be sharing all of that in our follow-up email, and also how you can get connected with the team. So thank you everyone for joining us. Dr. Summer, Dr. Zina, any last words before we close?
I just want to echo your thanks, Mehdi. And I think at the end of the day, Heal Palestine is not a group of staff in any one place, although our Gaza staff are by far the most heroic people I've ever met. But it truly is a grassroots organization that exists because of people on this call and people around the world who support, not just financially, but through their time, their love, their dedication, and their energy. So thank you all so much for being with us today and every day as part of Heal Palestine.
Thank you. Dr. Summer, any last words?
Thank you so much for being with us today. And like Steve said, something really inspiring for me, that Gaza people really need love. They want us to show them love and connection. They want to feel that they are heard and we still care about them. Like when I connect with the team on the ground, and our partners and schools leaders on the ground, they get so happy just for us to uh, remember them and connect with them, and caring about them. And every time I meet with someone, I would tell them, what do you guys need from us? They said, we want you to meet with us more. So they really want to connect with people outside of Gaza. They feel assured, they feel comforted and loved, and knowing that someone outside of Gaza still think about them. So this really means a lot for them, for their mental health and support. Thank you so much for showing this support.
Thanks, everybody.
One, thank
Thank you
you.
all.
Bye.